Welcome back to this Thursday edition of Morning Live. We continue to shine a spotlight on ECD centres in the country. We know that early childhood development centres, often referred to as crèches or daycare centres, even preschools, are vital spaces for young children. They're crucial building blocks for children's development as well as their futures at large. And yet the prolonged lockdown, limited state support during the COVID-19 pandemic has led to the closure of many of these ECD programs. So to understand the role of early childhood development centres, this morning we're joined virtually by the director of the Centre for Early Development, Childhood Development, and Associate Professor in Education Policy Studies at Stellenbosch University, Professor Eric Atmore. Prof. Eric, good morning, and thank you for making time to be with us here on the SABC at this hour.
Liesl, good morning to you and to your viewers from a very rainy Cape Town.
Well, Prof, let's see if you can add some sunshine and cheer to this important discussion. Firstly, understanding what early childhood development really is, the history behind it, and why childhood development is key to fixing South Africa's education crisis. What are your thoughts?
Early childhood development is a process. It's a developmental stage in the life of a human being. It's not a preschool or a crèche or an early learning center. Those are the mediums through which early childhood development is fostered. But most early childhood development activities and growth happens in the home and with the family. It also happens from conception all the way through the early years of life. Generally, internationally, it's focused on the ages birth to 8 years old. But it's a critical part in the development of the human being.
Prof, thank you for that correction. Of course, the mediums through which ECD occurs is what crèches and preschools alike amount to. We're obviously looking at the impact that COVID-19 and the pandemic has had on some of the programs prior to ECD learning. Talk to us about what you've observed on that front as well.
Look, the impact of COVID on early childhood development and children in general was massive, massive. You'll recall that on the 27th of March 2020, lockdown kicked in, and it was really harsh lockdown for about 6 to 8 months. And in that time, young children who had been used to an early learning environment, they go there every day, they see their peers and their friends, they see their teachers. They get involved in activities around literacy, numeracy, and life skills. And suddenly it was gone. So it had a devastating impact, but not only on the children, also on the Early Childhood Development Center. Across the country, we have about 24,000 of these early childhood centers, employing about 1.6 million, or hosting 1.6 million children with about 40, 50, 60,000 teachers, and they were suddenly without work. And in the overwhelming majority of instances, these teachers were not paid. So there was a huge economic impact on the teacher and on her or his family. So it had a huge impact, not only on the children, but also on the teachers and on the parents.
Yeah, and so Prof, we obviously have to fast forward to what's happening post-COVID-19 and the challenges that have erupted as a result. What have been some of the lessons that have been learned to prevent the harsh consequences, perhaps for future crises at least?
I think the first lesson that we've learned is that we have to have a minister and a government that supports early childhood development during these crises. In the case of COVID, the then Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu really didn't come to the party. She forbade early childhood development centers from opening, even after the minister, even after the president said South Africa is open again. And together with SA Childcare, the organization I lead, the Center for Early Childhood Development, we had to go to court. And we got the High Court to rule that the minister had to open the very next day. What she then did was that she cut all the ECD subsidies. We went back to court and she was ordered to pay those subsidies. So we have to have government support directly to ECD centers and to the ECD sector when there is a crisis such as COVID. And I'm afraid we didn't have that in 2020. The other lesson is that we have to prepare for these pandemics. And I think some support to the ECD Centre governing bodies, to the teachers, to the principals, particularly psychological and emotional support, because it had a huge toll on our 1.6 million ECD workforce. So we've learned a lot of lessons, and hopefully there will never be another pandemic of this sort. But if it does happen, we really have to have government coming to the party.
Okay, so future-proofing is essential, and government support as well. Perhaps also public-private partnerships is something that needs to happen more. But I wonder if we could also look at what is working. So to what extent has South Africa succeeded in creating a nurturing and enabling environment for young children? And then on that basis, what more needs to be done to enhance their development overall?
On the ground, we've got these wonderful, predominantly women who every day from 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening are caring for our children. They work long hours in very difficult environments and often with very little support. So really, these are the people who are living the Mandela legacy. They are putting young children first. And as a country, we should be forever grateful to these predominantly women and a sprinkling of men. I think, we've neglected young children. We've signed the Convention on the Rights of the Child. We've signed the African Charter on the welfare and well-being of children, but we're not living it. And we're seeing centers struggling in appalling conditions, in wooden iron structures, no water, no sanitation, pit latrines, young children as young as 3 and 4 years old falling into these pit latrines. So we really need a shift in the mindset of government officials and the Department of Basic Education now. We really have to put young children first. And I'm afraid we haven't been doing that, certainly not since the era of democracy in 1994.
Prof, we're certainly navigating the waves of change when it comes to 4IR and AI, but even just capacity building at large in addressing the historic imbalances of the past. We run out of time, so I'm going to leave the conversation there. Thank you very much for weighing in at this hour. Prof. Eric Atmore, Director of the Centre for Early Childhood Development, as well as Associate Professor in Education Policy Studies at Stellenbosch University. This morning, chatting about the importance of support needed for early childhood development sector, of course, to provide all these essential services that we'll see the ripple effects play out later on. Let's leave it there and continue with more news and updates upon our return. It's time for a quick ad break.